So for this week's video, I am going to be filming a vlog. I am going to be rereading The Gilded and the Serpents, and this is basically going to serve as a review, because I wanted to do a review for the series for a really long time, but I have tried to film it a bunch of times, and I've just never really gotten it right, but I feel like doing a vlog will really just allow me to encompass my feelings, because I'll be able to talk to the camera as soon as I have feelings about a certain section or a certain chapter, or whatever I'm feeling, so that's what I'm going to do. Also, I'm currently filming this the day after Thanksgiving. I ate so much food. I have made a list for myself of all the videos I want to upload this month, December. So, happy December! I hope it's good there. Let me know in the comments how it is. So yeah, and I wanted to do another reading vlog for a while, so I chose to do this because anytime I try to film a review about a book or a series that I like, I just end up saying I liked it for 20 minutes, and then I end up scrapping the video. So instead, that's why I'm doing a vlog. But I'm going to be vlogging basically this entire month. Well, technically it's still November for me, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm going to be filming this entire month. I'm doing Vlogmas, which I've never done before, and I've never tried to do it, so wish me luck. And I'm not going to go crazy posting a video every single day, because who has time for that? Like, truly, who has time for that? So that's what I'm doing for December. December is usually like a pretty chill month for me. I don't really ever have to do anything in December, except for Christmas and stuff like that. So I'm going to try to read both of these books in the next 3 days before Monday. I have not read anything yet, but I will check in once I have read something. I have never really filmed a reading vlog for, like, books that I know I will like, and, like, over a long period of time. Usually I just film daily vlogs, like, for the reading rush and stuff, but we're gonna see how this goes, so. Okay, goodbye. So I got a haircut. It is looking pretty tragic at the moment. I'm not a fan. I kind of look like how I did in 7th grade, which was something else, so we're not gonna talk about that. And also, I'm the friggin' worst, and I just did an update yesterday, but I did get pretty far. I am on part 3, and on page 153. And basically what I thought I could do is give just a recap of what has happened. Also, I realized that I never said this was a spoiler vlog. It's a spoilery vlog, so if you haven't read the book, get the frick out. But, yeah, I'm just gonna give a rundown of what happened in the first 2 sections, and then talk about, like, what I liked about them or something. I don't even know what I'm doing, so send help. But basically, in the beginning, we meet the 4 main characters: Severin, Layla, Enrique, and Sophia, and then there's, like, also Tristan, and then Hypnos, like, joins the crew eventually. But basically, in the beginning, well, in the prologue, the matriarch of House Corey, there are 4 houses, you know, there's House Corey, House Nyx, House Vanth, and then the Fallen House. House Vanth was Severin's house, but it was disinherited because he never got, like, the test to, like, see if he could run the house after the previous patriarch died. And then there's the Fallen House, which is a fallen house because they tried to connect the Babel fragments to recreate the Tower of Babel from the Bible, and it's like it messed them up, and then they are the Fallen House. So there's only 2 houses left: House Vanth and House Nyx and House Corey. And in the prologue, the matriarch of House Corey is attacked, and we're like, what the frick happened? And then we see Severin and Enrique at this auction at House Nyx, and they see the patriarch of House Nyx, Hypnos, and they are trying to steal this artifact that is a compass with a map in it or something. And when they get into this room, Severin is attacked by this sentient bear statue, and then the chapter ends. And then we have Layla, who is, you know, doing her thing, cooking in Lidon, which is the hotel that Severin owns. And then we see Enrique, and he and Severin get out, and they basically find the compass, and they break it, and they see this weird symbol inside. And then we see Sophia, who is the, like, the last POV, and we just get her introduction, and then we see them all gather into one of the rooms in the hotel to discuss what they found. And basically there was this weird, like, diagram that they found inside the compass, which is the, like, I Ching diagram, or the one Ching diagram, and basically every unbroken line is a 0, and every broken line is a 1, so it's going from 1 to 0, which is nothing to something, which is, like, related to the power of God. And then they also see this weird thing, which looks like this, and when I read it the first time, I was like, that's a Horus eye, and then later, like 2 pages later, they were like, it's a Horus eye, and I was like, wow, I guess I'm just the best. And basically, it's like the Eye of Horus, which was something, it was like a symbol in Napoleon's, like, sieges that went on in, like, the early 1800s, or, like, late 1700s across Europe. I actually don't remember when it happened, but I know it was around that time. But Severin gets this letter from Hypnos, who is the patriarch of House Nyx, which is who they stole from. And he's like, I know you stole from me, come to my house right now. And so Severin and Enrique go to Hypnos' estate, which is called Erebus, and they see that he has held captive Zofia and Tristan and Layla, and they're like, sir, what the hell do you want? And he's like, I want the Horus Eye, and if you get it for me, I will allow Severin to reclaim his inheritance. And Severin's like, well, crap, that's a pretty good offer, so I'm gonna do it. And, basically, all of them, Tristan, Layla, Zofia, Enrique, and Severin, all figure out that they need to go to this event that is happening. And so Layla, Hypnos, and Enrique, no, Layla, Hypnos, Severin, and is it Tristan or Enrique? I don't know. They go to this place, and Hypnos is like, Layla, Severin, and whoever the frick are gonna die. And then the chapter ends, and we see Zofia and Sofia and Enrique. They're at the Exposition Universelle to collect this artifact. But, oh, also, I forgot to mention, Severin, Layla, Hypnos, and Tristan are at this place because they want to interrogate House Horus Courier to figure out where the Horus Eye is. And anyway, so Zofia and Enrique are at the Exposition Universelle, and we learn about the Negro village, and we learn about just the terrible atrocities that happened because of it, and just how it was a terrible atrocity, and just disgusting. And basically they are at the Exposition Universelle because they want to retrieve this artifact called the Streak of Saya, which will allow them into House Corey's estate. And then they get attacked by this guy, and he has this honeybee pendant, and they essentially realize, well, he's like, this is the first mention of the revolution, and, anyway. It really reminded me of that, episode of The Golden Girls, where, Blanche, Rose, and Dorothy are at this, like, resort, and then this guy, like, the guy keeps coming in talking about the revolution. Is that just me? So they get attacked, and then we see Layla and Hypnos feign this lover spat because something has gone wrong, and they end up not achieving what they wanted to. And they go back to Lead On, or whatever the hell it's called, and or how it's pronounced. And they realize that they have to go to this event called the Chateau La Lune, or something like that. And Hypnos is the one that has to get them invitations. And I really like the discussion of race in this book because Enrique is half Filipino, half Spanish, and the invitation that Hypnos gives him is for a Chinese man, and Enrique's like, this is frickin' offensive. And then also, Zofia is Polish and Jewish, and Hypnos gives her an invitation that was for a Russian baroness. Keep in mind, this takes place in 1889, and she was like, what the frick? Are you crazy? I'm not about to, like, pose as a Russian, considering all the terrible things they've done to not only the Polish people, but the Jewish people. Like, that's so offensive. But Hypnos is like, do you guys want the freaking Horus Eye or not? And also, Zofia and Enrique were trying to figure out what the honeybee symbolizes and how it kind of relates to Napoleon and stuff. And they see this, which is like Satyr, Arepo, Tenet, Opera, and Rhodus, which is a palindrome, and they figure out, like, something about it, and they realize that it's like a paternoster square, and then, like, they have to go, they're like, part 2 ends where, like, they get these invitations, and they're about to go to the Chateau La Lune. Anyway, that's basically it. Also, I forgot to mention, Layla, basically, in her introduction chapter, she goes to the 7 Deadly Sins garden, and it's a thingy, it's relevant to Severin's backstory, because it's like, he had 7 fathers, and each one is basically named after one of the 7 deadly sins, and it's like in his head. It's not like that he actually had parents named like wrath and gluttony. Like, but yeah, that's it. I'm like almost halfway through or something like that, so I'm gonna keep reading. I'm probably gonna finish it and then just do one last update and then read Serpents, but I'm really enjoying it so far. So yeah, and it will comfort me knowing that I look like this. So bye! So I'm the freaking worst again, and I haven't recorded anything, and now I finished the book. So at least now I have the dust jacket on, so that you can look at something while I talk. But tell me how I literally read this book 4 times and the ending still gets me. I don't know how that works. But this book was just superior. Chef's kiss. Honestly, I feel like this is my favorite reread of the book. But yeah, I'm basically just going to do what I did last time, recap what happened, and then I'm going to go further in depth. Also, I'm just going to preface this by saying I know this is going to be like super freaking messy because I stopped taking notes because I was just super immersed. But basically what happens is they end up going to this place. And also, I said in that earlier clip that they didn't find out the location of the horse eye. They did. So, it's in House Corey's estate, obviously, which, like, I feel like they knew. I feel like all of us knew. But basically, all of them end up going to House Corey's estate for this event, and, or is it her estate? Or it's like, she owns it or something. And they end up there, and basically what they have to do is Tristan and Enrique are going to go to the greenhouse to sort of distract the guards, and they have this poison that Zofia made for them to, it's like a gas thing, but they are wearing masks so that it will not affect them, and they basically get through, and then we have, oh, I'm really sorry for that noise I just made with my mouth, that is nasty, but then we have Layla, who is hiding in this cake so that she can go to the library to get a key, and then she will give it to Zofia, who will recreate it and like make a copy of it, and then give it to Hypnos and Severin. So Layla and Zofia are going to go with their key, or are going to go to, I think, I kind of forget, but I think Layla, oh wait, no, or is Layla already in the library? I cannot remember. I don't know what is going on with my brain right now, but I was just reading it and like I wasn't really processing it. I was just like, I want to keep reading because I'm so addicted. But like they all end up in this library. I know Tristan and Enrique like ended up there in the gardens, but then Zofia went through this Tezcat door. And then, like, Layla was there too. I forget how she got there. I cannot remember if she was already in the library or not. Like, I honestly cannot remember. And then Hypnos and Severin meet up with them with the key that Zofia copied. I'm pretty sure Layla used the original key to, like, get in, but I cannot remember. And then they end up in this area where there are these fireballs, and there are these 13 levers, and Enrique realizes that they need to use the Fibonacci sequence, so it's like 0 and 1, and then you do 0 plus 1 to get 1, and then you do 1 plus 1 to get 2, and then they keep doing it until they get to the final number. And then they get into the subterranean library, and they realize that there is an entire shelf of Horus eyes. There are like 50 sections of them, so all 5 of them end up going through, but Tristan is actually in... What happened to him? They had to bring him up somewhere, because while he and Enrique were going through the garden, the greenhouse, he kind of passed out or something, and then, so Tristan is not there, so we have Enrique, Zofia, Layla, Severin, and Hypnos, and they're in the library, and they are going through the Horus eyes, and then Layla finds a book that is stuck onto the shelf, and they take it, and basically this creature called Amit, it's like a mythological creature, it's like a lion, hippo, crocodile type thing, and if it, like, bites you, it's like you're in hell or something. I don't remember, because I learned about it in, like, 6th grade in, like, one of my classes, so, yeah, but it wasn't, like, totally explained, but Layla uses this feather, and then Amit is, like, destroyed or tamed or whatever, and they get the horse eye, and then they leave, and then they see Tristan, and he's wearing this Phobos helmet, and Phobos helmet is like something where if it's on you, it just repeats your nightmare over and over and over again. And then they see Rogebert, which is like some guy, and he was dancing with Zofia in the at the party, and he is also the one. They like find out that because they were both wearing honeybee pendants, he finds out that he was also the one that attacked Enrique and Zofia, and he also spoke about the revolution once more. And they realize that Tristan has been, you know, like, oh my god, my hair is so tragic. They realize that Tristan has been affected by this Phobos helmet, and then they basically, Rochebert takes the horse eye, and he has like all the rings from the different houses, and he just disappears with Tristan. He's like, you guys have 3 days, and to like get me this ring, and then you can, like, I'll give you back the horse eye, but like, he just like yeets. And then they all convene at Leadon, whatever the hell it's called, and then there is this bone clock, and it is said that if the bone clock is like activated, it will show the location of the fallen house, which they think Rochebert is a part of. And then they figure out that it's the bone clock, and they're like, it's bones, like the secret is bones, and there are 206 bones, so they do 206 on the clock, and then it reveals the catacombs in France, and they're like, well, we gotta go to the freaking catacombs. And so then they go to the catacombs, and they see Tristan there, and they basically see the horse eye, and they all have these different roles. And then Rochebert basically summons the Babel fragment, and like the fallen house wakes, and all of these skeletons like come together to work. And then this Tezcat door is like destroyed, and then Severin has the Phobos helmet put on him, and then Layla sees something because she can read objects like on the horse eye, that like she sees what happened to Tristan. And then Severin has the Phobos helmet put on him, and then Layla kisses him, and then basically they like destroy Rochebert, and then this doctor comes in, and a bunch of stuff happens, and they basically get Tristan back, and they go back to Leadon, and they think they've defeated Rochebert, and everything's great and grand, and they're just living their best lives. And then they go to this place, and Layla, as L'Enigme, goes to perform, and then Severin sees this note, and it's like, Rochebert is still here. And then Rochebert just appears, and he kills Tristan, and then Severin's like, what the hell? And then we get, like, the part ends, and then there's a new part, and it's 2 months later, or 2 weeks later, and Severin is in his office, and he missed Tristan's funeral, and then we have Layla and stuff like that. Oh, and then Enrique and Tristan kiss. No, that's not right. Enrique and Hypnos kiss, and Zofia, because they had a little love triangle, she ends up seeing this happen, and she's really hurt, and then we see Layla and Severin talking, and now it's like November or something, so it's like 5 months later, and we see her ask to be his mistress for the Winter Conclave in Russia, which is what happens in book 2. And then a bunch of stuff happens, and he insults her, and he's like, you're not even real, because she was like made or something. And then the book ends, and then we have Hypnos, who is like, it's like the epilogue, and he is talking to the matriarch of House Corey, and she's like, are you sure Severin doesn't want to administer the 2 rings test? And he's like, girl, what the hell are you talking about? Why would it matter? She's like, well, we did perform it. And then he's like, yeah, I know, because that was years ago, and it was like, everyone knows that the tests were falsified, like the results. And she was like, no, they freaking weren't, and he's not the actual patriarch of House Banth, and he can never know. So, and then the book ends. So, as you can tell, a lot of crap happened in that last 150 pages, and I was not ready for it, and I will never be ready for it, no matter how many times I read this book. But I love this book. There's not really much I can add, except for I love the riddles and the different diagrams that are in the book. Like that is so cool, and I just love it. I feel like it's so interesting, and there are not a lot of books that freaking do that, and I just think it's so cool. And like, there's another one about like the honeybee, and I just think it's really cool, and I think Roshani Chokshi is a genius, and I love it. I do like book 2 a little bit more, but like, this is still a 5-star. One of my favorite books of all time. I think it is perfect. Like, there's nothing that I would change. And also, there was a love triangle in this book, and it is like a real love triangle because all three of them like each other. So it's like Enrique, Hypnos, and Zofia. Enrique likes Hypnos and Zofia. Hypnos likes Zofia and Enrique. And Zofia likes Hypnos and Enrique. And it's like a perfect love triangle because all of them like each other. And honestly, I mean, the superior love triangle will always be Will, Jessa, and Tem. Who? Will, Jem, and Tessa from the Infernal Devices, but this Hypnos, Enrique, and Zofia comes really freaking close, and I think it is just chef's kiss. I love this book, I love this series, and I will never stop talking about it. But now, well, not right now, I'm gonna eat lunch right now, but when I'm done with lunch, I'm gonna read The Serpents. I am so excited, because this is gonna be my 4th time reading this book, but it is going to be my first time reading the finished copy, because the first time I read it back in December of last year, and I read an e-arc, and then in February, when I reread The Serpents, I read a physical arc, but it was missing all of the formatting. Like, it was just a regular font. There were no illustrations or images. And then, again, in August, I read the physical arc where there were no images or illustrations or cool font. And so this is the first time of me reading the actual finished copy with all of the images, and I'm so excited. And, like, it didn't even have the regular, like, Koshin font that the finished copy has. It was just, like, a random Times New Roman. And I'm so excited to actually read this with, like, all of the formatting. So, yeah, and also I just love this book and the atmosphere, and it's getting really cold in New York, so I'm hyped. But, I don't know what I'm gonna freaking do for the rest of the day. It's Saturday, so I have, like, today and then tomorrow to do nothing, basically, and just read. And I want to get, like, a good ways into this book today, and then see what happens. I'm gonna eat lunch now. But when I read, I will check back in. So, goodbye. Hi, so it is the next day, and I thought my next clip would be about the Serpents, but I edited the footage that I had, and I realized that I didn't really talk about my overall feelings about the Gilded Wolves. So I'm gonna talk about my overall feelings. If you don't know, I love this book. I feel like it's pretty obvious from the way that I was talking about the plot, but, like, I realized that I was mostly talking about the plot, and I want to delve a little bit further into the other stuff. So just, like, a recap of my thoughts on the plot. I loved it. I am, like, a sucker for an intricate plot line. I love that moment in a book when it's like, you think something is this for so long, and then it's actually this. And it's like, I just really loved the way, like, even in the beginning chapters where it was like, they thought it was a compass with a map in it, but it was actually this, like, diagram of this horse eye thing. I just thought that was so interesting, and I love the way that Roshani creates her plots, and I can tell that it's, like, a really important, like, thing to her. So I've only read this series and then the Aru Shah books, the ones that are currently out. I have not yet read her debut series. I do have the first book, The Star-Touched Queen. I know there's a sequel and then a short story collection, but even in the Aru Shah books, like, it's the same. It's like a really intricate plot. I know a lot of people said they thought the Gilded Wolves was slow. I thought this book was so fast-moving and, like, so rapid, and I loved it. And I mean, I like slow books as well, and there were parts of this book that I feel like were slow, but I didn't mind because I just loved the characters so much that I was totally fine with having a slow plot with just really great characters. So I feel like that's why I didn't really mind it that much. And then, again, the characters. I love all of these characters. Like, I even love the villains in the series, like Roshani, and even you can consider Tristan a villain. I feel like it was just really, really interesting, and I really, really love the characters, and I feel like if I had to rank them, I would say Zofia is my favorite. I just was really excited anytime I got to a chapter from her perspective, and then I would probably say Enrique and Layla are, like, tied, and then I would say Severin is just my least favorite by default, but I really, like, there was never a point where I would reach a character's chapter and be, like, upset that I had to read a chapter from them. I was always really excited, and I was never bored in this book, ever. I always thought everything was so interesting. Even if the characters were just, like, sitting in a room talking and, like, eating cookies, I could read, like, 500 pages of that. So, the characters are just really great. I love Hypnos as well, and I really liked Tristan also. And Roshani was just a really great villain, I feel. And I also really liked the matriarch of House Corey. I thought she was a really interesting character, and I'm excited, like, I know that we learn more about her in the sequel, but I'm really excited to learn more about her in the third book, because I feel like we will get, like, more of her backstory in that installment. Oh, also, I can't believe I forgot to mention this. Last night, Booksplosion had their live show for this book, and I didn't even know this was, like, their book pick of the month, but it was, and I was literally in the chat, like, answering all their questions, and I felt very special because they acknowledged me, and I was like, wow, I'm so cool. And then, what else did I want to talk about? Oh, the writing. I mean, Roshani's writing is so good, like, it's so descriptive and magical and lyrical, and I could always picture a scene, even if there were things that were confusing in the book. Like, there were some scenes where there were just so many moving parts. There were, like, a lot of characters in the scene, and there were a lot of things happening in the scene, and there was a riddle, and they had to figure it out, and there was, like, a fireball in the center. Like, that sequence was really confusing to me, and especially the actual, like, heist part, where, like, Layla had to get the key, and then Zofia had to copy it, and then, like, through the Tezcat door. That was confusing. Also, the sequence with Hypnos, Enrique, and Zofia looking down at the catacombs. I think it was a reflection pool that they were looking at, and then they just went through it, or it was like a Tezcat door. I cannot remember, and it was confusing to me. But even in scenes like that, I was still completely immersed in the book. It was never a deterrent to me, really. So, I definitely enjoyed that. And then, that's it, I guess. Overall, this is, like, one of my favorite books ever. Just, like, ever. It's just so good, and I know a lot of people don't like it. I don't really understand why. Like, I know being confused about, like, the magic system could be annoying for some people, but I personally didn't really find it confusing. I liked the way that it was kind of vague and elusive, and I just like that sort of kind of magic system, because for people, like, most of the only characters in this book that have affinity or, like, forging abilities are Zofia and Tristan dies, so Zofia is really the only one that has an forging ability. So, and we were explained about forging by Layla. Like, it was her perspective where we got most of the explanation about forging, so it makes sense that it was a little bit vague and confusing because she is not super well versed in it, so that makes sense to me. But yeah, overall, I love this book. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and I cannot wait to reread it, because I don't know how to act, apparently. So it is a little while later, and I finally have time to recap what happened in part 1. I'm finally going to read again, but I was at Barnes & Noble with my family. Ooh. This viewfinder is going to be the end of me. I was at Barnes & Noble with my family for a while, so that's why I haven't been able to read all day, but I mean, I'll probably be able to finish the book, so not worried about that. But, I'm gonna put this down because I don't have the dust jacket. I mean, I have the dust jacket, but I don't want to put it on to just take it off afterwards, so we're just gonna put it over here. So, essentially, just to recap what has gone on, it is, like, a month after the end of the Gilded Wolves, because the Gilded Wolves, like, most of it took place in, like, I want to say May, but then in the final, like, section of the book, it was, like, 2 months later, and then it was 3 months later, so the Gilded Wolves ended in November, and this book takes place a couple of days after Christmas. So, it's December now. And we are sort of just catching up with the characters in the beginning, so Severin is still... Oh, well, in the prologue. The prologue takes place 13 years before, and we have the matriarch of House Corey, and she is wrapping a present for Severin. And then Lucian, who is Severin's father, biological father, he comes in and he's like, someone wishes to speak with you. And then Kahina walks in, who is Severin's biological mother, and she's like, do you love my son? And Delphine, who is the matriarch of House Corey, is like, yes, of course I love him. And Kahina's like, well then please, you have to protect him. And then we start the book. So we delve into part 1, and we have Severin, who is still reeling from the end of the Gilded Wolves, where Tristan has died. And it's been months since he's died, and Severin is not really the same. He's sort of just skulking around, and he's not having the best time. But, we see him... So we basically get a recap that he and Hypnos have been trying to locate a book called the Divine Lyrics, which can grant its possessor the power of God. And they believe that it is in something called the Sleeping Palace because when Roosevelt was dying, he mentioned a place called the Sleeping Palace, and they sort of ended their search for it because they couldn't get any information. But we see Severin with a meeting with this man, and he is saying that he's like asking for information, and the man is like, I'm not going to give you any information. And Severin pulls out Tristan's penknife, and the man is like, are you going to stab me with that? And Severin says, no, because I already poisoned you, because he poisoned the porcelain coating around the man's tea. And then he's like, are you sure you don't have information for me? And then we cut to Layla, who has a man in her bed, and she's like saying, she gets a note from Severin saying to meet her at noon. And then she meets up with Hypnos, and they go into this carriage. Then we have Enrique, and he is talking to the men of the Illustrados. And then we have Zofia, who is, we see that she went back to Glowno, Poland, to take care of her sister who was dying, and she lied to the group saying she was just going home for Hanukkah, but she was actually going to help her dying sister Hella, and Hella basically tells Zofia to go back to Leiden. She goes back and she talks to Severin, and Severin is asking her to join the crew for a new acquisition, and she says that she's not sure about it. And then they eventually, like, he convinces her because he says that he will make sure that Hella is alright, because he will request for a letter to be sent to Zofia in Hella's handwriting every couple of weeks to ensure that she is doing fine. So Zofia accepts, and then we have all of them, Zofia, Hypnos, Layla, Severin, and Enrique gather in the, I believe it's the stargazing room, and they basically figure out that the Sleeping Palace is in Siberia, and they realize that there is a man who lives in St. Petersburg, and along the English embankment, which is the Angliskaya Nebertsnabnaya or something like that, and they go and they realize that he has two Tezcat spectacles, when they're put together they will reveal the exact coordinates of the Sleeping Palace. And so they essentially go and they realize that he has one of these Tezcat lenses in his, like, a chamber in his house, and the other lens is on this necklace that this man is wearing, and he's going to be at this theater called the Mariinsky Theater. And so they decide that Enrique, Zofia, and Hypnos will go to the chamber, and Layla and Severin will take the invitations that Hypnos is going to give them to the Mariinsky Theater. And so Zofia, Enrique go to the house that this man lives in, saying that they are a writer and photographer and want to do a piece on this chamber called the Chamber of Goddesses, and the man lets them in, and he's like, by the way, the statues around here will disappear if you're not out in 20 minutes. And there are these 9 statues, and Enrique's like, oh, the 9 muses of Greek mythology. And then they let Hypnos out. They have him in this, like, cabinet suitcase thing, and they see that a 10th statue has, like, arrived. They realize that there's a 10th statue, and Zofia basically strikes a match and puts it to the floor, and a riddle appears, and it's like, the nose knows not the scent of a secret, but holds the shape. And then we cut to Layla and Severin, who are at the Mariinsky Theater, and they use these magnets that Zofia made for them to pull the guards apart, the bodyguards, and they go to the salon where this man is staying, and they take his, the lens, and he basically says something really cryptic to Severin that I don't remember, and it's like, she will find you or something like that. And then he's like, well, you're freaking crazy, so I'm leaving. And they do, and then we cut back to Layla and, Zofia and Enrique and Hypnos, and Enrique's like, oh wait, this could be in reference to the Cupid's bow, because there is a story where this angel, like, when you're born, you hold all of the world's secrets, but this angel presses above your lip and below your nose to, like, lock away the secrets. And so he goes up to this 10th statue, and he presses his thumb to her Cupid's bow, and then she cracks open, and they have this box, and then they open that, and they find the second lens, and then this fire starts, and they leave, and they meet up with Severin and Layla, and Layla basically reveals that she only has 18 days until her birthday, and she also reveals that she can read objects, which I believe Severin knew, but none of the other ones knew, and she essentially, we know that she only has 18 days to live because she will die on her 19th birthday, because the person that forged her when she was stillborn said that she would only live to her 19th birthday. And so we have that as her dilemma, and then they basically meet up, the Troika catches on fire, and then they meet up with Delphine, who is the matriarch of House Corey, and she basically, talks to all of them, and she's like, let's freaking go to the Sleeping Palace or something. And then the part ends. I realized that I forgot to mention the Lost Muses. The Lost Muses are basically a myth where these 9 ladies, wrote different parts of the Divine Lyrics, or, they had pieces of the Babel fragments, and then they, put them together and something like that. And you can only read the Divine Lyrics if you have this special bloodline that is inherited from the Lost Muses. But anyway, I'm gonna keep reading, and I will update after. I feel like I've been talking for so long, my ears hurt, so I am going to go. And I will check Ben afterward. So it is probably an hour and a half, 2 hours later, and I am now on page 280 of The Gilded Serpents, and I am about to start part 4. I don't know if I'll be able to finish the book today. I have 120 pages left, but it's getting dark out, and I don't like reading when it's dark because I have really sensitive eyes, and I hate reading by unnatural light because it's just, I don't personally like it. So I will probably finish this tomorrow, if not tonight. But I'm gonna recap what happened. This is gonna be pretty messy because I was not really paying, I was paying attention, but I was not really, thinking about, I was not, taking notes about, what was happening. I was processing everything, so we're gonna go off my memory and not notes this time. Essentially, what happened is they all end up shopping in Irkutsk or something, which is a town in Siberia with the matriarch of House Kore, and they eventually end up in this, tea salon place, and they meet the patriarch of House Dashbog. His name is Ruslan, and they meet his cousin, Eva, and then they end up they go to the lake, and they use the spectacles to sort of summon the Sleeping Palace, and they enter, and then they find this sunken courtyard, the sunken garden sort of thing, and it's an ice grotto, and then they, there's an ice thing that, hits Severin, and then Eva, who is a blood forger, she saves Severin, and then Layla gets jealous, and then she tries to talk to Severin, but he's, out of whack, and then Zofia goes and sees the Leviathan, which is this creature that is in the ice grotto, and she sees these symbols written on the Leviathan's mouth. Oh, also, Layla saw these, ladies, these, statues, and she's like, those aren't girls, those are, she's like, those aren't statues, those are literal girls without hands, and they are dead. And basically, Zofia, she walks into the Leviathan and sees these writings, and then she meets up with Enrique and Hypnos and Eva, and they see this door, and they use Hypnos' blood to reveal, some stuff, and then it's a Tezcat door, and they go through, and they end up in Istanbul, and they hear this name, oh my god, wait, was it Horowitz, or it was something along those lines, and they end up in Istanbul in the Ottoman Empire, and then they see these guys attacking these girls, and they're like, no one will remember you, it doesn't matter that I'm killing you, and they end up leaving, and then Enrique wakes up, and they all end up back at the, sunken courtyard or whatever, and they collect more writings, and then they develop a key for what each symbol means, and they uncover that it translates to... It's something about the devil, and The Zofia names the Leviathan David. Oh, Layla, she reads the objects, she reads the different statues and sees their history, and they find out that Rebecca was the daughter of this man, and she was Jewish, and all of these women that were killed were actually Jewish, and they were killed because they were like, no one will remember you. And then they became these statues, and then there was this writing, and it's like, the devil is in me, and something about, like, teeth or something. And then they also find this other, like, writing, and it says, to summon God's instrument will lead to the unmaking, or something like that. And yeah, that's kind of where we leave off. That was really messy. I'm super sorry. But something that I really loved about this section was how we delve into Zofia's backstory, because she is Polish, she is Jewish, she's receiving these letters from her sister, sort of just updating her on her health and things like that. And I really, really loved learning about Zofia's history, because she's Polish and Jewish, and we really see how, like, the Jewish people and the Polish people were completely ostracized, and, you know, I believe she's the only non-person of color in the group, but she is still a minority. She's Polish and she's Jewish. And, you know, there was, like, the anti-Slav sort of thing that happened, or, like, the anti-Polish, anti-Jew, anti-Semitic things that happened, and it's just really interesting, and I feel like we also learned that, Zofia's mother was pregnant, and then she lost her child, she had a miscarriage, and she was going to name that child Rebecca, which is, like, the name of that, one of the women that was killed, and is in the sunken, like, ice grotto. And it's just really interesting and sad, and I really I cannot personally relate, but my maternal grandfather was, you know, taken by the Red Army and in a labor camp, and all these terrible things that happened. And I just really love the way that this series delves into history, and I loved the author's note in the Gilded Wolves, which I forgot to mention, but there was a line that says, history is a myth shaped by the tongues of conquerors, and I actually made a whole, like, thread on Twitter, and if you want to see it, I guess I can link it in the description box, but I feel like what I wrote there will be more succinct and articulate than what I can say now. Yeah, I'm just having the best time reading this book, and I love all of these characters so much. This is definitely a slower book. I feel like The Gilded Wolves was really fast and more plot-heavy, with really, really great characters to support it, and this is a story of, like, delving into the actual characters with a really interesting plot and setup to support it. So I'm really interested to see what the third book is going to be like and how that's going to sort of deal with different things. We're introducing a lot right now. I really love the it's not really an introduction, but I love how the Tezcat doors and just how that whole thing works. And I just love the atmosphere of this book. It's super icy and takes place during the winter, and there's the solstice, and I really love how Layla, I mean, I don't love it, but, like, she's counting down the days until she's gonna die, which is really sad, and, yeah, it's just really good. And I think Roshani Chokshi is just a master storyteller. So I'm really excited to finish this reread, and then I am gonna be sad because I will have to wait, like, basically until fall of next year for the third book, but I'm gonna see what I can read tonight, and then if I read tonight, I probably won't get to updating, so I will see you tomorrow. Bye. So, I just finished The Silvered Serpents, and I'm freaking broken. Truly, I am just devoid of anything and everything, and I don't know what to do. So, it is the next day, obviously, if you couldn't tell, and, like, I literally just finished this, like, a couple of minutes ago, and I'm for sure going to leave things out as I talk about this, because I don't even remember where part 3 left off. I just read part 4 in this, like, frenzy, and I just don't know what to do with myself. But I think where we left off, I honestly don't know. Oh, okay, so Severin and Hypnos, I believe, are going into David the Leviathan in his mouth to find the book, And basically we see them go inside and they find this thing, and then the chapter ends, and then we see Layla and she's talking to Enrique, and she tells him that she's gonna freaking die. And he is like, Layla, I think you might be the lost muse, because he asks her to read the thing where it's like to summon whatever will create the unmaking or something. He's like, I think you're a lost muse because I just freaking do. He's like, I just think you could be a lost muse because they are like, were able to read something that others couldn't, and you can do that with your, like she can read objects. And he was like, so can you read this? And she was like, no. And then Hypnos and Severin come back and they're like, yeah, there was no book. And then we see Enrique, and he sees that, like, symbol again, like the backwards 3, and then he turns it over and it's like the Omega symbol, and then he turns it again and it's like the lemniscate or something, which is like another Omega symbol. And then he sees that again on one of these statues, like her lyre, and then he takes the lyre and he puts it in this box that Severin and Hypnos found when they were in the Leviathan, and it fits perfectly. And he's like, wait a second, it wasn't ever the divine lyrics, it was the divine lyre, or lyre, and it was a mistranslation, and people just thought it was lyrics, but it was actually a lyre, or a lyre, and that's why it always says it was like God's instrument. And it was like all these things about the instrument, it was like to play at God's instrument will summon the unmaking, and things like that. And then we have, I think it's Ruslan, and he's talking to Delphine, and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, the midnight auction is going to start, so like all these different houses are going to come to this sleeping palace, and the midnight auction will start of the Winter Conclave. And then stuff happens, and it's just like, we sort of meander for a little while, and then Layla is talking to Ruslan, and he's like, or I think it's Ruslan, and he's like, there's this drink where, like, if you drink it, like, it's like blood, and then you can look like someone else for an hour. And Layla's like, that's pretty freaking suspicious. And she goes up and she sees Severin kissing her. She, like, literally sees herself kissing Severin, and she's like, is that freaking Eva? And then she was like, yup, it's freaking Eva, this Russian, you know what? She was like, you freaking, you know. And then she was just, like, talking to Severin. She was like, how could you think that was me? And then they end up together, like, sleeping together. And then they wake up. Oh, also, when Enrique tells Ruslan what he found, how, like, the lyre fits inside the box, it was like he passed out or something. And then we have Zofia, and she goes into the Leviathan or something, and she sees stuff, and then she passes out. And then that's when we have Layla and, like, the whole drink and everything with Eva and Severin. And then she goes, and then she hears something about, like, the doctor, and then we have Severin, and then basically Severin and Enrique end up in this area where, like, all the others are, like, imprisoned, and so, like, Zofia is in the prison and stuff like that, and she sees this happening after it happens with Enrique and Severin. They're, like, trying to make this net with, like, this forging heat thing, and all these ice animals are, like, attracted to it or something, and then there's, like, this thing, and then they all end up in this prison, and then Severin is talking to Delphine, and she's like, Layla is not actually the Lost Muse, you are an ancestor of the Lost Muse, and, like, Layla is being tortured by Ruslan, because he's like, you need to play the lyre to, like, do this thing, because he actually ends up, he's like, he was the doctor, and he's part of the Fallen House, and House Dazbog is, like, the Fallen House or something. And so Severin is actually the ancestor of the Lost Muses, because I think it was Kahina who was, like, part of it, or I still don't know if Kahina is his actual mother or if it's Delphine. I'm, like, 90% sure it's Kahina, but it was, like, he hesitated calling Kahina his mother for some reason, and I don't understand why, but, like, anyway, I think he is an ancestor of the Lost Muses, so he is able to play the lyre and, like, become a god and stuff. And then they find out that there was this temple, and it can, like, bring all the Babel fragments together, and then, like, other stuff happens, and then Delphine's like, you have to make a choice, and then he goes to the prison where, like, Zofia and Enrique and, Zofia are, did I ever say Zofia, Layla, and Enrique are in the prison, and Ruslan's like, you gotta play this instrument, and he's like, frick no, and so then he kills Zofia and Enrique's had his ear chopped off. I don't know how I forgot to mention that, but he kills Zofia and Enrique, and then we see Layla, and she, like, crouches down, she's, like, she's like, I cannot believe that I outlived Zofia and Enrique, especially since I only had 11 days left to live, and then she's like, well, now we can't play the lyre, so I can't, like, exist anymore, and so she's, like, I don't know, she's, like, crouching down in something, and then we see Severin, and he's speaking to Delphine, and then we see, like, 1 hour earlier, and we find out that he didn't actually kill Zofia and Enrique. He just took Tristan's penknife or something, which was, like, coated in paralysis things, and when you stab someone, they're paralyzed and they can look dead for, like, a really long time. And he had raspberry jam, and he was going to put it on himself to make it look like he had stabbed them, and, like, that was blood coming out and stuff like that. But it wasn't, they didn't bleed or at all, and so then he is like, he gives Layla this Nemo, whatever it's called, and so that she can see what the plan was, and he's like, Delphine, you need to go tell Hypnos, and then he's like, we'll tell Zofia and Enrique when they wake up from their paralysis, and then we have the epilogue from Hypnos' perspective, and he's waiting by Lake Pike Hall, and he's talking to Delphine, and she's like, saying that, also we find out that the reason the inheritance test, like, didn't work is because, like, obviously Severin is not, like, I don't know, it's like if his blood would have, like, torn apart the rings or something. Because he is so powerful and he is part of that, like, Lost Muses bloodline. And so then we have, like, the epilogue with Hypnos and Delphine, and it's like, they are all gonna convene together, and it's like, but Hypnos, like, had no, like, for the next 2 minutes, all he could do was wait. Then the book frickin' ends. So as you can see, a lot of frickin' stuff happened in the last 180 pages of this book. And I was not ready for it. I honestly don't even know what I was expecting. Like, I was like, oh, maybe, like, in the back of the finished copy, book 3 will just be hiding there. No, I still have to wait until, like, probably fall of 2021. And that's upsetting. But yeah, this book broke me. I don't even know, like, how I'm able to, like, compute. Like, I can't compute. That is the whole thing. But I did want to say what my favorite scenes were. My favorite scene in the Gilded Wolves was probably the scene when they're, like, in that Fibonacci, like, they have to use the Fibonacci sequence. Either that or when they figure out that the Horus Eye is the Horus Eye. And then my favorite scene in the Silvered Serpents is when they go through that Tezcat door and they end up in Istanbul. And they see, like, how the Lost Muses were, and they see the no, was it the Horowitz guy? It was, like, Rebecca Horowitz, and she was being, like, yelled at by this, like, crummy old white man. But yeah, that is it. I don't know what I'm going to do waiting for book 3, but that is it. I finished the books. I will probably end up rereading them, like, at least twice before book 3 comes out, because I am a mess. But that is it for this video. I really, really hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't read The Gilded Wolves and the Silvered Serpents, I don't know what you're doing at the end of this video, because I spoiled both books completely. But if you have not read them, I really recommend you reading them, even though you just got spoiled for everything that happens. And if you have read The Gilded Wolves and the Silvered Serpents, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I want to know what your favorite scenes were, and if you can explain some of the things to me that, like, I seemed a little shaky on, that would be great. But yeah, that is it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know if you want to see me do other videos like this. But yeah, that is it. I post videos on Tuesdays. I really hope you guys enjoyed. All my social media links are in the description box below. And yeah, so I really hope you guys enjoyed. That is it, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!